All right, so welcome everybody to our webinar for January, Healthy Growing for Healthy Bodies, Activities with Young Children. My name is Rob Payo. I'm Director of Youth Education over at Doug. Judy, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure, I am Judy Elliott, also known as Jungle Judy, Senior Education Specialist with Doug.
So nice to have you. And so nice to start a new year talking about this topic. So I'm going to have Judy start with talking about healthy eating tips from this great website that she found, First Discoverers. So go ahead, Judy.
So one of the things that I think is most important when you're working with children, especially young children, is to make whatever you're doing that's food related really fun, engaging, and hands-on, not to expect too much, just to make it, colorful and wonderful that the kids just want to jump right in. So let's look at some other type of things. So the next thing is just say, keep things simple, using language that can be easily understood. So, if we're talking about watermelon or anything like this, or anything that might be on the plate, don't use any kind of big words, maybe bring in the colors, maybe bring in the textures, maybe having the child pick up that piece of food and feel what it feels like in their mouth. And realizing that new foods, when we try new foods, they are a process. Children are born creative and with that sense of wonder and joy. But if they've never been introduced to a new food, then sometimes there's a little bit of, why should I try this? Or a little pulling it back. So we're just introducing one thing at a time at meal times. And then, there's food and there's food. So if you're serving food that is very processed, that is not whole food, if you read the label and you don't know what's on that label, you can't understand the words, that might not be the best choice. So you always want to make sure that kids are having, whole grains ideally, and milk and lean protein and tons of water and lots of fruits and vegetables. That second thing is just I'm going to tell you how that fits in. It says be a good role model, eat healthily in front of children. Well, in the past, Doug taught a lot of nutrition focused gardening classes that I used to teach together with another colleague of mine. And we were working with children from 3rd to 5th grade. And when we would do the lessons in front of the kids and prepare food, it was wonderful. The kids were enticed by the colors, the textures, they were willing to try. And then lo and behold, they'd walk by the cafeteria and see the teachers pulling out Big Macs or, cans of pop. So, we are what we eat. If you want your children to eat in a certain way, then be the model that shows them it's okay to eat that. And always, always, always be mindful of health and safety issues. Hidden allergies for peanuts and whatever, again, personal story. I remember my daughter's friend, my granddaughter's friend was over at her house one day, and the girl had not read the label, significantly so, and she had a terrible peanut allergy. And one of the last listed pieces of information said, prepare it in a facility that processes peanuts. So we always need to be aware of, is this food in a way that the child is eating slowly enough they're not going to choke? Any specific allergies? Just be aware of all that stuff when we're talking about eating. And just bringing it down. There are all kinds of definitions of good nutrition and healthy eating. But basically, the one that I like is really simple. When I eat food that's healthy for me, then it makes my heart, muscles, and bones strong. That's the kind of food I want to eat. It gives me good things in it. And when I eat foods that are unhealthy, the opposite end of the spectrum, it doesn't keep my heart, muscles, and bones strong, even if they taste good. So if I'm eating 3 bags of hot Cheetos or something, and Gatorade with a lot of sugar in it, that might not be the best thing, because if I eat too much of that, it might give me a tummy ache or my teeth might start to hurt. So break it down into ways that kids really understand and model it and keep it simple. And then a simple graphic that you can share with kids. If you look at why, and again, this comes from our government resource, the CDC. Center for Disease Control. If you look at their website, they've got all kinds of resources for healthy eating, and they break it down to adults and to children. But basically, you can see that good food affects every single part of your body. So for glowing skin and eyes that can see the lessons really well and can see the colors, you want healthy food. For muscles that can throw a baseball, that's one of the things, I always say, strong muscles come from strong food. We have a tremendous, obesity problem in our country right now with kids. To maintain a healthy weight, healthy food, strong bones, we want to grow real strong and tall. I remember there was a month when I didn't see my grandson, and he was off the charts. I could not even, almost didn't recognize him because he was eating good food. Those bones are growing so quickly, and those brains are growing until you're over the age of 20. So if you want the ability to think in class and not fall asleep at 9 o'clock in the morning, or not end up in the principal's office because you have so much sugar overload, you always want to think about healthy brain, healthy food, healthy growth overall. Kids that eat healthy food come down with less problems. So you're going to be spending less money in the doctor. And it also, there's a tremendous connection between eating proper food and what we call our gut biome. So the microbes, the healthy microbes in our digestive tract. If you want your tummy to feel good, we keep a lot of the junk food. It's best to keep a lot of the junk food out. So really, if you break it down, healthy food makes a healthy body, all parts of a healthy body.
Thanks, Judy. I had to laugh because I know I've seen pictures of your grandson, and it's like night and day, like from one picture to the next. He's grown so much. So we wanted to just start, just with that sort of basis to ground us in, what are we talking about? And some of those tips, some of them are just common sense when it comes to thinking about healthy eating. So now we want to shift our attention to, why is this important? And then we'll move into activities that we can do. And just to underscore why this is important to think about, I pulled some statistics from CDC in terms of statistics about children and their diet. So here's a few questions. I invite you to type in the chat what your guesses to the answers to these are. So here's the first question. They did a survey of children between 2001 and 2010, consumption of sugar-sweet beverages among children and adolescents. What do you think, increased or decreased? Type in the chat. What do you think happened between that time? So, oops, I gave you the answer. It decreased. I was trying to click on to let somebody in, but let's see who already answered. Okay, Marina said it increased. Oh, Marina, I have your book. I still haven't sent it to you from last time. Forgive me. It's been kind of crazy. Karina said increased as well. It actually decreased. Okay. Now here's a second part to this question, and I promise I won't give you the answer. So let me see if I can advance it without giving away. Sugar sweetened beverages accounted for what percentage of total caloric intake among children? So let's see what your answers. Oh, darn it. I did it again.
Oh, no.
I think because I have to type in the chat, I have to look for the chat. So I won't look at the chat. So you just answer for yourself. It's actually 10%, which is significant. If 10% of your total caloric intake is from sweet beverages, that's what is known as empty calories. And so it's filling you up, but it's not giving you the nutrition and nutritional value that you need. Okay. All right, here's another question. And this time I won't look at the chat. You're going to have to, maybe Judy, you can look at the chat here. Between 2003 and 2010, total fruit intake and whole fruit intake among children and adolescents, did that increase or decrease? So type in the chat your answers.
Marina's saying increase, and
okay,
saying increase.
Anybody else want to type in the chat there? Give you a little moment. If you want to get on the mic, you're welcome to as well. What do you think happened to total fruit intake? What do you think, Judy?
I think it increased. I think kids are pretty good about taking in fruit.
Mm-hmm. Well, because it tastes good for one thing, right? But whole fruit. We're not talking, substitute fruit. I see more people typing in the chat. Can you check in there and see what's
I
going on
will.
there?
So Sarah agrees that it increased and Julie says it increased too.
Okay, Julie says yes. Well, it did increase.
We have a
Okay,
smart group, but
yes.
let's
However, most
however,
youth still did not meet fruit and vegetable recommendations, meaning that they increased their intake, but it's not enough to meet the daily requirements or just the daily guidelines in terms of having enough fruit
so
and vegetables in
Rob,
your diet.
before we go on, when
Mhm.
we're talking about fruit intake, I think it's important to distinguish between things like whole fruit, like whole oranges and apples, and then juices. Okay.
Correct, correct. Yeah,
So if we're having fruit in the form of juices, we're having a highly concentrated form of fruit sugar
sugar. Mhm.
without the nutrition of the whole fruit, which gives you the peel, other than obviously the peel of the orange, and gives you something called fiber, which fills us up. So
Yep,
it's always best to have fruit or vegetables in the whole form rather than super processed.
right. And that added fiber also helps our large intestines and and just the fiber intake that we have that we need as part of our diet. Yep, good point, Judy. Okay, here's
Well,
another question. Again, I won't advance. So Judy, you have to help me in the chat there.
I will help you with the chat.
Empty calories from added sugars and solid fats contribute to what percentage of daily calories for children and adolescents age 2 to 18 years? Is it 20%, 30%, 40%, or 50%? Type in the chat or come on the mic and tell us what you think. You have a 1 in 4 chance of answering it correctly. What do you see there, Judy? I can see that people are adding into the chat.
So Karina is with 4, 5, I'm not sure what that is. V, 5, Julie says B, 30%.
30%.
Sarah says C, 40%. Karina, it changed hers to B. So we have a C. Okay, so let me get back. Karina is B, Sarah is C, 30%. And Sarah says, I hope it's not D.
Yeah,
We'll find
no,
out.
that's a lot. That's a lot.
Melissa thinks it's B, 30%.
Yeah,
What is our
50 is a
answer?
lot, but you know what? 40 is a lot too. So so this is a concern, and those habits that we set are hard to break into our, as we get older. So if we've set the pattern, this is, and haven't, set a pattern where, no, we choose to drink those things sparingly, and those are, not a regular part of our diet, that's to consider. All right. So half of these empty calories come from what sources? So if we look at what people are eating of empty calories, what are they eating that consist of half of what it is? What do you think? And so you just have to guess. What foods do you think people are eating? So again, type in the chat what you think.
And I'll read it off.
Okay.
Empty calories don't really give us any nutrition.
Yeah. So what are they consuming when we're talking about empty calories?
Melissa is saying Takis.
Oh,
Okay.
Takis, yeah.
What else?
That's very specific, yeah.
And Julie says drinks, snacks. Chris has got chips down. Any other thoughts, people? Fast food, Maria. Good, Marina, pardon me. Right. And then Sarah has another thing. Sarah, pre-processed crunchy snacks and juices. And Julie added crackers. Good thoughts, people.
Okay, so this is based on the survey. This is the answer they came up with: soda, fruit drinks, dairy desserts, grain desserts, pizza, and whole milk. I was a little surprised about whole milk because I thought, well, maybe they're talking about dairy, maybe they're talking about ice cream, but then I thought, well, no, that's dairy desserts. I didn't have time to actually dig into this a little bit more. And I'm a big fan of pizza. So when I read this, I was like, well, what is it about pizza? And it's the hydrogenated oils. It's the fats that are hard to break down.
And if you think about the things that kids love on pizza, very few are asking for mushroom or extra veggies or anything like that. It's, I'll have extra pepperoni, extra cheese, extra sausage, ham. So all of those processed meats that, oh my goodness, you're not even sure what part of the animal they come from, but they taste so good. They're not only high in saturated fat, terrible for your heart, but they're super high in salt. So they're
Yeah.
responsible,
Mhm.
unfortunately, for a lot of the extra weight,
Yeah. And
even
then
though they taste good.
yeah, and I added this extra piece. Oh, sorry, my dog is barking. Most youth do not consume the recommended amount of total water. And this is something I never drink enough water, and I really need to work on it. So I don't know
So
what Dita is barking
Sarah
at.
has another thing that she put in the chat, which is great. And she said, I think some young children can overdrink milk versus transitioning to a healthy, well-rounded diet. Well,
I think
I'm
so
not sure.
too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So always, always, always water. And unless you have a child who is younger than 2 years old, none of our children need whole milk. You know, unfortunately, just that
Mhm.
label whole, you get to thinking, oh, it's whole, there's something added, it must be better. And it just has the extra milk fat in it. Actually, the calcium content of
Mhm.
1%, even 2% is not recommended in schools anymore. 1% or skim
Mhm.
milk is what's recommended for the calcium. We don't need the extra fat.
Yeah. Well,
Uh,
thank you for that thought, Sarah. I appreciate that because yeah, we kind of put too much love on milk sometimes. So you know, you know, instead of in exchange for other foods that could be also beneficial for us. So
Oh, and Marina also mentioned, well, Esmeralda
well, now I can
also
open up the chat.
said
Yeah, I can see here.
she agreed that a lot of our kids can overdrink milk. And then Marina said
Flavored milk.
flavored milk,
Yes. Yeah, there you go. Yeah,
strawberry
chocolate
milk,
milk.
all that
I
jazz.
know. Yeah, chocolate milk. You give me chocolate milk and I'll just guzzle it down. And you know, I have a lactose intolerance, so
You know, it's pretty interesting. Just one quick thing before we go on, how things that
Mhm,
are inherently healthy can be made non-healthy. You know, we mentioned dairy desserts beforehand. Just having
mhm.
the flavored yogurt
Yeah, yeah.
there with the fruit that you stir in, that's all sugar. If you read the ingredients, you know,
Mhm.
you can just crush up some strawberries and put it in your yogurt. Um, and Rita says, "Hey, I can't deny that I like a glass of chocolate milk once in a while." So again, we're
Yeah,
not
that's
saying never,
honest.
ever,
I know,
ever on
me
these things.
too.
No,
Me too. And now I drink,
chocolate is
you
a food
know,
group, right?
yeah, I drink almond milk, chocolate. I can drink a whole thing by myself. Okay. So speaking of healthy eating, though, we have a bunch of activities that we want to share with you that we sort of uh, combed around to look for. And some of these came from a couple of websites. I'll make sure that I share those with you. But here's some activities we were highlighting. So Judy, growing food, something
Oh
you're
my
very familiar with.
goodness. You know, we have Laura with us, you know, on this webinar.
Mhm.
And Laura
Oh,
Calderon
Laura's here.
runs
Okay,
a lot
good.
of our garden clubs, and this is one of her garden clubs. So there she is. Hey, Zia.
Say hi,
Actually,
YouTube.
Zia,
Hi.
Zia does a whole bunch of activities with us. She's a great chef, you know, thanks to her mom.
Yes.
Yeah, we love working with Zia. So, I mean, you can see there's no better way. Look at the joy on the faces of these kids. Most of the faces of these kids, you know, you can assume that some of them have never seen a tomato growing on a plant. So, introducing kids to the raw state, if you will, and where our food comes from, where our cultural traditions come from, allowing them to pick some of the stuff in the garden, growing kid-sized vegetables, going on vegetable hunts, looking at vegetables in all phases of their growth, looking at the insects that they attract, the flowers that we grow them with. I can't think of a better way to get kids into an idea of, you know, what is this, first of all, that I'm eating? Why why should you even eat this? And how does mom, you know, what are some of the ways that mom can cook with this or that I can use it for snacks after school?
Mhm.
So just edible stuff from the garden. I remember one year we were doing summer garden clubs and we decided we were going to make modified burritos with whatever was growing in the garden. But we did not use tortillas because tortillas, at least in the end form, do not grow in the garden as far as I know. unless we were to grind the wheat or corn. So what we did is we had some beautiful lettuce leaves, and we picked the lettuce leaves
Mm,
and laid them out on a buffet, just on a table with plates. And then the kids went and they picked some tomatoes, and we had brought in, a mom had made some beans, so we spread some beans on it. We chopped up tomatoes, and we had some cilantro there, and we had some peppers, and we rolled up that lettuce leaf. And oh my goodness, for kids who you say they would never eat this vegetable, they made it themselves, the meal, and it was gone. So grow a garden. If you don't have space outside, use pots to grow with your kids. Get their hands in the soil, get them to experience planting that seed, and then going ahead and watching it grow, harvesting it and using it. And then maybe finding it later on. We'll teach you about going to the supermarket with your kids. Well, I could grow that myself. One of the best ways of getting your kids involved in food, have them grow it.
Judy, I'll have you field this question. Julie had a question about if there's a place or an organization that provides training in food safety in the
Well,
garden.
I was looking at that, what Julie said, and one of the things that we can forward to you, Julie, we need to find it, is we used to do a program at Doug called Garden to Cafeteria. And in that program, the children would help grow the food in the garden, and then the school cafeteria would actually purchase the food from the garden. The kids would harvest it. So going along with that training, the nutritionists at the Food Nutrition Service for Denver Food Nutrition Service, I'm sure we could pull that up, came up with a whole training about working with kids in the garden and harvesting food. So we can certainly get that to you as far as safety goes.
Yeah, we can look that up, and I'll send that to everybody because we have some of the guidelines there. But and if anybody else, on the in the webinar, if you have any other thoughts, please chime in on the chat there. So thanks for that question, Julie. It's an important one. Another activity that we found was using toy food. So to, especially at this, this age of, of play, as a form of learning, free play. You could have different, there's different companies, and I was remiss in trying to find a good company that has toy food, but here you can use these foods to talk about, healthy food, examples of what healthy food is, and then, but also use them as an additional learning tool in terms of categorizing or organizing food or creating patterns, and just getting the habit of, having them see, different types of healthy food there. So that's an example of that.
I've used this activity when my grandkids were a lot smaller. I've got 5 grandkids. And when the 2 that live here, when they were smaller, I've got a whole bunch of play food and a stove downstairs. So there was some food I got, and again, like Rob said, I don't know the company, but you could actually take apart the halves of the strawberries and see seeds. You could see what the inside of a banana looked like. So this is a way of getting kids to know a lot of things. It's a way of saying, put more green on your plate. These are some veggies you can use to put green on your plate. Naming those veggies for the really, really young child. Naming that we want to eat colors from, the deeper the color, the healthier the food. So for instance, even bringing in a leaf of iceberg lettuce, which is pale green, versus dark green or red leaf lettuce, which has been exposed to more sun and has more nutrients. You can discuss the value, but for the young kids, getting them involved in seeing the whole variety of food they can have, the colors, it can even evolve to finding out, have you ever eaten this and how has mom used it? So it's a great way of just introducing them to a whole thing. And then, am I doing this one, Rob? Were you?
Sorry, I couldn't find a mute button. Yeah,
Okay.
Go for it.
So groceries, just like regular bingo, this is, go to the grocery store with your kids and take this card with you, and then have them show you, find an avocado, okay? Find a broccoli. When they find 5 vegetables, then they get bingo. Doesn't matter the color. It's the more, how many vegetables can you find? Can you find bread that's a member of the grain group? The different sources of protein. This is super important because when we're talking about strong bones, a lot of people are not to say you should not, there are more ways to get strong bones than a diet which is heavy in saturated fat, which usually comes from red meat. So if you can identify other sources of protein, like beans that are eaten in so many cultures, chicken without the skin, eggs, which unfortunately are so high in price right now, peanut butter or almond butter, even tofu, tuna fish, ways to get alternative sources of strong bones. How many sources of calcium other than milk? What can I use? I can use cheese, I can use yogurt. So getting kids to know these groups, the dairy, the protein, the grain, the vegetables, the fruit groups, and then having them find the actual specimens in the store. This is super important because so many of our children have never seen these vegetables or fruits. So give them an opportunity to identify them and then even talk about, expand it to, and what shall we buy? How many of these? What do you think we can do with this if we were to purchase this? So have them being involved with food choices.
And before I talk about this, Judy, Melissa on the chat had suggested going to the school SGSO, the School Garden Support Organization, which has a ton of resources. If you don't know about SGSO, that it's a really great go-to place in terms of a lot of things related to school gardens. But in particular, that's a really good suggestion there, Melissa. There probably is something about food safety in there. Now let's look at this rainbow collage. Look at that picture. Isn't that something? I just love that, So, Judy had talked about just the colors. Fruits and vegetables is a great way of learning about colors. And making it an art project that is not only, helpful in that regard, but it's also very beautiful.
And, in addition to be very beautiful, this is a great time of the year for you to get your hands on some seed catalogs, which are widely available in the mail, or you can send away for them and just cut out pictures, you can see. So our seed catalogs will identify. What I love about using seed catalogs is it introduces kids to the whole, other than what they might see in a supermarket. For instance, tomatoes come in black and green and yellow and striped, and they're all tomatoes. And look at that amazing variety of not only colors, but different ways that foods are tied to cultural traditions. So it allows us to, work on color identification, on food groups, the grains, the vegetables, the deeply colored ones that we see. And then it can talk about, these are what healthy food looks like. So the whole family of broccoli, cabbage, and cauliflower is one of the healthiest families. So introducing children into that incredible broccoli family would be wonderful. Introducing kids to the amazing amount of greens that they can put on their salads and sandwiches, including some unbeknownst ones other than spinach and lettuce, like tatsoi, some of the mustard greens, some of the other Asian greens, arugula. Just, give them a chance to look at, oh, I've never seen that before. And once you find it in the seed catalog, I wonder if we can find it in the supermarket. And how could we use it? And would you like to grow that? So going on to helping to plan your garden. When you go through a seed catalog, what would you like to try and grow? And be intentional about your choices, because children will often say, oh, I've got to go this and this and this and this. I remember, case in point, one of the first years, then I got one of my favorite seed catalogs, and it had about 10 pages of gourmet lettuce greens, each picture more beautiful than the rest. I ended up, unfortunately, purchasing a good 15 packages of lettuce seeds. So just each packet could contain up to 500 seeds, one seed making one plant. So be mindful about your final decision, but this will introduce you to fruits that you've never seen, veggies you've never seen, things that you might want to try, maybe growing a garden, maybe planting those seeds with your kids. and also tie those foods then directly into cultural traditions. This year, I grew some heirloom beans that were not used for fresh eating, and I got them from the Seed Savers Exchange, and they were used for flour corn, and I actually ended up grinding some of them to make tortillas with. I also grew some heirloom beans that were then used for various chilies that I make. So there's lots of ways of tying corn into this is what I grew, the different crops into this is what I grew or my family grew. And just, introduce your kids into the wide variety of traditional foods that can be made from things we grow in the garden. So eating the alphabet, I used with my grandkids, and it is what it says. So this is a way of enforcing linguistic skills, of going through the alphabet. Lois Ehlert is one of the all-time favorite authors of mine because her pictures are so dynamic and vibrant. So she will start with just starting apple to zucchini. Come take a look. Start eating your way through this alphabet book. And then she goes for various, things. A is for, and you can take this to the supermarket with you too, is for apricot, for things that you might not even know. Artichoke, avocado that we use in salsas, in pico de gallo and guacamole. Apple, what can we use apple in? Asparagus, what does it look like to you? Have you ever seen it before? But she goes through the alphabet, she'll go through the C, carrot, and then you can just briefly discuss carrot grows underground. There's that wonderful cherry that we love to eat, and cherries come in different colors. Cabbages, cauliflower, M is for I think M is for my most wonderful melons. M is for marvelous munchies, for mangoes so sweet, N is for nectarine. So she'll go through the alphabet, show the children the picture of the fruit. They get a chance, maybe if they're old enough, to practice writing the letter N. So then every time they see an N, they can say, brings up nectarine, brings up melon. It's a great way of reinforcing the way a letter sounds and different things that we can eat with that. So it's one of my favorite books.
Thanks, Judy. And here's another book that I stumbled across, and it's really great. It's called Rice and Rocks by Sandra Richards. And Sandra Richards had a nephew by the name of Giovanni. And she wrote this in honor of Giovanni, this book called Rice and Rocks. And basically, Giovanni's grandmother was of Jamaican descent. And a family tradition one of the family traditions was to eat this meal of rice and beans. And so grandma would come and make this big pot of rice and beans, and they'd all gather at family gatherings to have rice and beans. Well, when Giovanni was young, he instead of calling it rice and beans, he called it rice and rocks because he thought the beans looked like rocks. And over time, when he'd go to school, he'd start meeting, people from around his school, and he was really shy about talking about his family roots, and really, was afraid that people would just make fun of him or that they just wouldn't understand, and he just didn't want to have that sort of awkward experience. So he wouldn't talk about it, and he was a little bit ashamed of it. Well, his auntie understood that and tried to help him. And one of the things that she did was she bought him this parrot, Jasper, who is a Congo African gray parrot. Now, he was a great friend to Giovanni, but what Giovanni didn't know was that this was actually a magical parrot. And knowing that Giovanni needed to understand more about his, to understand his own heritage, they went on an adventure with Jasper the parrot. Turns out that Jasper was a magical parrot that could grow really big and had really broad wings that could fly around the world. And so Giovanni and his auntie flew around the world to places where they actually ate rice and beans, only to kind of find out that there are so many cultures, so many countries, and so many places on the earth where people eat rice and beans, Puerto Rico being one of them. So as they were traveling, Giovanni began to see, oh, this is an important thing for a lot of families, but more importantly, it's a part of my family. It is a part of my heritage, and it is a part of my traditions. And so to appreciate that, and just have the good fortune to have this magical parrot that helped him to understand this. So this is the story of rice and beans. And I just think it's a great book. So it's one that we would highlight for you as well.
And I think it's also not only a great way of saying that, many cultures eat similar foods, but it's also a way of breaking down some of the barriers that kids have in talking with kids from other cultures. We have our uniqueness, but we have those wonderful traditions that keep us together, that can join us in the face of challenges.
Yeah. And I just remember, growing up, I mean, I'm from a Filipino family, and, we had lumpia and pancit and stuff like that. And I go to my friend's house, and they did not have lumpia. They did not have pancit, none of those things. And I was really self-conscious about that. I wouldn't really share about that. So this is a good book to help kids understand. No, we embrace our traditions, and everybody has their food traditions, and you should be proud of your own family's traditions. All right, so now we're going to give you a chance. We've given you a number of activities, and I'm actually going to activate the poll. So I will start a poll to launch. Those of you that come to our webinars, you know the drill. I'm showing the poll there for you. So click on the ones that you would want to try so far. Somebody said, I'm going to do all of them, and click all of them. Keep on clicking on there, and we'll see which ones are the most popular. It's also helpful for us, so we have a sense of which activities people really resonate with. So keep those votes coming in. I'll give you some voting music.
Oh no, Rob, you have
to. All right, I'm going to give you a couple more seconds. And now we'll end the poll, and I'll share the results. And growing food seems to be a very popular one, which, is not surprising. There's nothing more powerful than to grow food and to harvest it and to eat it. That's a very powerful way of reinforcing what the value of healthy food and how it tastes different. A tomato from the garden, I'll tell you, eating the alphabet and the food rainbow collage was also a popular one. Oh, and rice and beans as well. Okay. All right. Well, great. Thank you for doing our poll. We have some other activities here, though, for you. Actually, some recipes. So we kind of switched we're switching our gears here to healthy snack recipes. And Doug has a resource that we're going to talk about now. Go ahead, Judy.
So for many years, as I mentioned briefly, we had a nutrition gardening program in the school. And as part of that, we had parent activities. And the program was called our Healthy Seedlings program. So every time we would do a nutrition gardening lesson in the classroom, then we would send home every couple of weeks a book where parents could work with their children on doing the same activities from the classroom and different recipes. And these recipes were, they didn't require cooking. They were for after school. Children could do them themselves. And most important to us would be the price of these recipes. We wanted them to have ingredients that people could purchase just at a regular grocery store. We would not need to go to Whole Foods or anything like that, that kids could recognize what the food was. But they also could be modified if there were allergies. Like if it called for peanut butter, you could use almond butter or sunflower butter. And most importantly, that last one, it allowed kids to cook or to do things themselves. And when you do stuff yourself, it sticks. Then you get that sense of empowerment, and you want to do more. So this was a great way. Some of the snacks we're going to be showing come directly pardon me, from that Healthy Seedlings booklet. And again, they're very low cost. They can be modified, expanded upon, and changed. So I wonder what we've got.
Well, before we go on, I want to point out that this booklet is not available on our website. We have to do a little bit of modifications to it, but we'll make it available. And I'll send it out to everybody, from this webinar. But the Healthy Seedlings curriculum, which is a garden education, food education curriculum, is available for free. You can download it on our website. If you go to the doug.org website, go to the youth education pages, you'll see where you can download the curriculum there. But we'll make this available for everybody because there's some really great recipes, like, for example, this one.
Like, for
Judy?
example, how much easier can you get? This is a way that you can just cut up apples, and you can have your child. You don't need to use. You can just use a knife, a regular kitchen, a butter knife, to cut the apples up. And I would obviously have mom go ahead and cut out the core, or use an apple core. This is one of the favorite tools that I used with the little kids, where you just get an apple core and it makes that wonderful pattern of cutting those wonderful slices and removes the core. And if you notice, we leave the peel on because that's where so much of the fiber and the healthy stuff is. So you can do counting activities. I wonder how many sections you have. And then you add some kind of protein material. So you introduce kids into a good source of cheese. So this is not Velveeta or American cheese slices, but this is cheese that you actually have to slice. And you can, as the recipe says, you can use different types of cheese, cheddar, provolone, or Swiss. So do a taste test on that. And then you can try different apples. So most children have only been introduced to Red Delicious, one of our older varieties of apples. Some of the newer varieties that are out, like the Pink Lady or Cameo, are just wonderful in taste. So you can use this with pears. You can use it with apples. Basically slicing your apples and slicing your cheese, and have that available. And if you have a couple of minutes before that are going to lapse before you're ready to eat the apple, then you can expand it a little further and squeeze a little bit of lemon juice or pineapple juice over the apples, and it prevents the apples from turning brown. So wonderful way of after school health.
Yeah. And I know that I've had teachers who will do a graphing exercise with their kids with this. They do a taste testing. And so, like, if you had right on the board, Braeburn and Fuji and Cameo, and then kids have a Post-it and they have to then make a bar graph by adding which one they like the best. And then you can, just to introduce the idea that, you can represent things on a graph to show which one we like the most. And, that's just a simple way of introducing that idea of ways to represent things. I sure am a fan of Braeburn and Macintosh. First time I ate a Macintosh apple, which was, not that long ago. I'd never had a Macintosh. And they're not much in the store anymore these days. They used to be. I don't know why. Banana roll-ups. This is a great one. Any, buttered, nut butters like almond butter are great. In a whole tortilla, you just put on that peanut butter and then stick the banana inside there and make little slices. What better way to have a great snack that's really filling? And you can, you can have it in small portions so that, kids can eat how much they want. We're, one of the things that the tips that we'll talk about later is just recommending is to allow kids that sense of, what is enough for them as they're growing. If they're really active, they're going to need more food, and for them to make that active decision about how much they're going to be eating, as opposed to you need to clear your plate, sort of setup. Judy, anything else you want to add?
Oh, how many of us grew up with that feeling? I'm so glad you brought that up. My mother called it the Clean Plate Club. You always needed to clean your plate. The only thing that, additional thing that I'll bring up, it says here, make sure that whatever butter you use, peanut butter, almond butter, doesn't have added sugar. A
Right.
lot of the peanut butters out on the market have got added oils and added sugars to it. Peanut butter is basically ground up peanuts, so I do encourage you to read the label and choose a variety that just says ground up dry roasted peanuts or almonds and a little bit of salt. You
Yeah.
might need to stir it up because it doesn't have additional oil, but it doesn't need that extra sugar in it.
Or ground up your own
Yeah,
peanut
it's fun to make your own peanut butter. You just
butter.
grind it up.
Oh, this
Um,
is a good one.
oh my gosh, I love this because this is so adaptable. So, this is a whole wheat pita, whole wheat English muffin, a half of that. And then, you can even use yogurt on this or low fat cream cheese. And then you have, I would encourage that you have bowls of fruit cut up where kids can then make faces on it. We've used this for Halloween to, make pumpkin faces on it or, put something else, put a grape on top, make eyes on top of the bananas, whatever it is, you can use some sunflower nuts on top of it. So this is where the creativity and the choice comes in for the kids. You can use some raisins or nuts, but it's a way of getting that protein. Here you go. It's the whole grain with the English muffin. Kids aren't going to know it's a whole grain instead of a white muffin, a white flour muffin. And then, a source of good protein with your low-fat cream cheese or yogurt. And here's your fruit, your whole fruit. So allow them to choose and make faces. They can make a garden, they can make hair. We've had them use, if you're using vegetables, you can do whatever spread you're doing and have them, shave up some carrots and make hair on it and do eyes and ears with grapes. It's a wonderful way of them saying, yeah, I'll eat this. I made this. Isn't this fun?
We've got another book here. Thanks, Judy. We got another book here. We've got 10 minutes. I'm just sort of monitoring time here. And that'll give us plenty of time to talk about this book, Good and Cheap. Eat Well on $4 a Day.
So Good and Cheap, and Rob, please add to this. This is a book that we've had around for a while. And it's a wealth of information on how to have a complete balanced diet on only $4 a day or less. So it takes you through a whole day from breakfast, lunch, dinner with very easy to prepare foods, not very much money required, but it's been tested on kids. And we've pulled out a couple of recipes that we think maybe you might want to say, I could do this at home or try with my friends. What do you think, Rob?
Yeah, so much that I'm actually going to buy this book for myself, really. So here's an example of, this is a yummy recipe. You want to talk about this one, Judy?
Oh, look at this. You know what? Very few kids don't like cucumbers. So it's basically making a salad out of dry bread that we might throw out, cutting, you can even have the kids tear up. You don't even need to make it into cubes, tear up dry bread. You might want to toast it and then mix it in with some, ideally from the garden, cucumbers and tomatoes, a little bit of salt and pepper, maybe a jalapeno that you've taken the seeds out of, or you can use green pepper if you don't want that, if that's too spicy. Just more tomato chopped in with lime juice, and then add whatever herbs you'd like. Now, I've done this recipe with, like it says, some fruit in it. And it may sound weird. It's absolutely wonderful with cucumbers and some peaches in it for a little bit of sweetness. And that's a way of also, a lot of kids will eat pizza with olives on it. Just jazz it up a little bit with color. So put grapes in, put olives in, whatever you like. Just make it simple. I wouldn't put everything in at once, but introduce the kids to, this is a kind of salad. This is the way of eating grains and vegetables. With that wonderful spritz of lime on it. It's absolutely fabulous. And it can be varied. It doesn't need to be, if you don't want to use cucumbers, you can just cut up some zucchini or summer squash in small cubes. Use what you have on hand and try small additions. I love this recipe.
Yeah, makes me want summer to come. There's a whole section on things on toast. And these are just examples. I just kind of cut it off. I don't have the full recipe here, but you can see, peas and lemon on toast. So you just add a little lemon juice, a little cheese, a little seasoning there. There's a little snack there for you. Asian green grapao. a little ginger, a little soy sauce, Asian greens, and some Thai basil. Oh, that sounds so good. I mean, and really, honestly, you could use this for a party, really, for appetizers, caramelized onions and cheddar. That's a simple one. Things on toast. There's like 3 pages of recipes. Roasted vegetables with some Romano cheese. It's just, it's just an opportunity to get vegetables into the diet in a way, little samples of it, and just have it on a piece of bread.
And I want to, before we go on to the next one, I want to put in a special plug for the roasted veggies, because what I found with the grandkids is the sweetness that occurs from just roasting carrots and beets and zucchini and even onions, anything, any vegetable in the oven, celery together, broccoli and cauliflower are my favorites. Olive oil, sea salt, maybe a little bit of vinegar at the end or lemon juice. And then just put it under the broiler with that little bit of cheese. There are very few young kids that I've tried this with that don't say, oh my gosh, more and more and more. Yeah, the sweetness takes away the bitterness, gets those veggies into tummies.
Hummus. We've talked about hummus before, right, Judy?
Oh my goodness. Hummus is just basically, chickpeas. You can cook your own, or it's a great source of protein. And just blenderize it. And tahini is added source of protein. That's a sesame paste. Look at this: lemon juice, garlic, olive oil. Blenderize it all, and then you can add your own additions, whatever it might be, up on top.
Easy to make. Yeah, easy to make.
More garlic up on top. Always more garlic. Yeah. And then this can be spread. You say, how would we use this? This can be actually used as a dip for veggies. You can put it on carrot sticks and hummus. Put it on English muffins. Just basically, it's a wonderful source of adding stuff to your diet. Protein rich, vegetable. You can put parsley on top of it, put a little bit of cooked broccoli in it. It's easy. It's something that your kids can do with you.
This is really making me hungry.
Oh my goodness.
Peanut sauce, and again, this is just, there's other sauces that they recommend, but this is a simple sauce that you can mix in with vegetables. You can mix in, with pasta, all these things. It's very simple, using jalapeno, garlic, and shallots or an onion, coconut milk, and sugar-free peanut butter and soy sauce. And there you go. You have a simple sauce that you can mix in as a dip or mix in, as a sauce. So I want to try that one. Nune's hungry too. Yeah, it's a great, I was really impressed by, Judy whipped this out when we were doing this, and I was just like, oh my God, this is a good book. So what recipes do you want to try? We're going to put another poll, and let's get a sense of which ones spoke to your palate, as they say. So we'll let the votes come in. What's a favorite of yours, Judy?
A favorite of mine, my all-time favorite, is probably peanut sauce and things on toast.
How would you use the peanut sauce? Is there any way that you used it? That
peanut sauce. Now, I don't eat meat.
Right.
So I use a lot of tofu. So I will saute the tofu, and then I will just stir fry a whole bunch of different veggies. And do the peanut sauce, mix it in with that, and then serve it over brown rice.
Oh God, that sounds good. Oh my gosh, that sounds good. Yeah, and I was, and I wanted to point out, I forgot to point out that, beans and rice is a complete protein. So the two together actually support one another. If you eat a lot of rice by itself, it can spike your blood sugar, but that rice and bean combination actually is really good for, good for nutrition. Banana roll-up seems to be the winner. We have fruit pizza and panzanella and things on toast. Okay, very good. All right. Now, we want to recognize, for this last piece of our webinar, we want to recognize that, healthy living is more than just the food you put in your body. And so we've got a few slides and thoughts on this. So Judy, why don't you show us, we've got this Venn diagram of healthy garden, healthy body. Go ahead.
So this is an activity that we used to do when we were teaching in classroom, and we just get the kids up and to say, well, what does it take to make a healthy garden? And what do we need in order to be the best that we can? Not just put in food in our body, but to be the best that our bodies can be. And I wonder what some of the things that you can think of. Oh, crops. So, in our garden, we grow many different things. That keeps our garden healthy because it varies the insects that come to the garden. So it's not just corn or tomatoes. We do varied things. And if we want our body to be healthy, then we need, good quality food that includes fruits and vegetables. So I wonder
And
what else.
variety of those vegetables.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder
Mhm.
what else a healthy garden needs. Oh, a healthy garden needs to have its soil covered so that its soil doesn't dry out. And we call that mulch. And we need our body covered with, different seasons of the year, different kinds of clothes and different weights to keep our body covered. And a healthy garden, we don't just plant the seed, we need to be there. And for healthy body, I need people around me that are going to look after me and support me. So you can see some of the things that are really similar. A garden needs good soil in order to grow, or good soil amendments, and we call that compost. And we need a good source of vitamins and minerals that come from our food. And a garden needs people there to tend it and to work its soil, and we need exercise, not always sitting in front of the TV. We both need water and sunshine and space in order to be the best that we can. So really, we're talking about high-level wellness for our garden and our body. And they're very similar what we need. And kids can pick that out. Try this with your kids at home. And Rob, do you want to take that one on?
So we've been talking about, we have these meals that we have, and that we can, stop and think about, well, how can we make these meals healthier? So I have spaghetti, we've got oatmeal, and we have pizza. So what are your thoughts? What are your suggestions of how you might make these meals healthier? Let's start with the oatmeal. How would you make that healthier? So type in the chat or get on the mic. How might you do that? I'm a fan of the blueberries myself.
Marina says
So,
berries.
yeah, berries,
And Julie says fruit and
fruits and
nuts.
nuts.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Any other thoughts?
What about the pizza there? How could we make that healthier?
There are ways.
Judy, when you make a pizza, what do you do with
Well,
the
my pizza does not
Yeah.
have pepperoni on it, okay? But my pizza has all kinds of veggies. Like it had, yes. Oh,
Mm.
veggies, light on the cheese, veggies, no meat. Add
Also
veggies,
says
healthy crust, they're coming
pineapple.
in now. Yeah, I do a whole wheat crust. Sometimes I'll do a cauliflower crust.
Yeah.
But I will do tomatoes and peppers and
Mhm.
cauliflower and mushrooms and all those squash on it. Maybe not
Mhm.
all at once, but I'll try and get my colors on the pizza.
Mhm. And then how about spaghetti? What are your thoughts, everyone? Add fresh basil. Spinach,
Mm,
olives. Oh, I love that idea.
Spinach olives. Now you're talking my
Yeah.
language.
And just making your own
Oh, look
sauce,
what we got. Roasted veggies.
Yeah,
Thank
there
you.
you go. There
You're,
you
yeah,
go.
you can use your garden to make your own sauce for it. Make it
Zucchini.
on zucchini. Look at this.
Mhm. Puree
Pure
orange
orange
veggies in
veggies.
with
Oh
sauce.
my
Oh
goodness.
God, that's making me hungry. Marina,
Let me give you
stop that.
one other thing that you may not have thought about, this that I've started to do. In addition to oatmeal for breakfast, you can have a savory oatmeal for dinner. So
Mhm.
that allows you to think of dinner like a porridge. So kind of a curry thing with veggies in it. So,
Mhm.
oh,
So
we
you're
also have
saying a
stars and
puree.
carrots for great,
Yeah, for
puree, great.
carrots. That's
Yeah,
lovely.
puree your veggies into your
Yeah.
sauce. Great.
Well, we only have a minute left, and we want to sort of end this with acknowledgement of the fact that there's this notion between food security and meal security. And Anjali Pasatong has a blog called The Anti-Racist Dietitian. She's actually local now here great writer. If you have an opportunity to read what she has to say, her reflections are very powerful. And here's something she has to say in terms of this notion of what we call food security versus meal security. Our thinking around food security usually stops at making sure everyone has enough groceries, but we spend less time thinking about how those ingredients will be eaten, the work that will go into transforming that into an acceptable plate of food, and who will be doing that work. That, it's great to have that food, but we also have to invest and value putting that food together, turning it into a healthy meal that that it looks appetizing enough to eat. And that, this is more of the challenge than this is as big of it. Let's say this is as big of a challenge. And sometimes when we're trying to support people, we forget that, they may not necessarily have the time or means or space in their kitchen to actually do this. So that this is something we have to consider. And also that notion of, fast food. She talks about that a lot too, that, we usually equate fast food with, with unhealthy food, but that does not necessarily mean that that those things are always just exclusive to each other. Can we have options that cut down the time, but also equally address healthy eating? And this is something that Anjali Pastor-Tong is very passionate about. And is somebody I personally want to follow to understand this more. And how can we communicate this with people? So I want to just leave you with that thought of, and this, opens up conversation in the future. But, we have to tend to this. We have to recognize that, we've been talking about all these great recipes, but if you don't have the space and time to do them, it's important to recognize that, and also to find recipes like the ones we've been talking about that are simple, that are quick, that, people readily see, kids readily see and say, oh, I really like that, So to finalize this, children are able to decide how much food they need for activity and growth if they're allowed to eat according to their appetite, as we talked about earlier. Allow your child to decide how much food is enough versus going to the Clean Your Plate Club. Stricter low-fat diets are not recommended because child's energy and nutrients are high. And high energy treats are best kept for special occasions. We can't, we don't want to just take them out, but we also want to just keep them in their place, put them in their place as a special thing, not just an add-on that is always in your lunchbox. Judy, any final things you want to say?
No, I think just to recommend it, just a recognition, I guess, that we're talking about behavioral change here and food.
Mm-hmm.
And when we're looking at adapting new behaviors, I think it's super important to realize that in order for kids to actually try a food, there are many steps before that food actually gets into the mouth. And our taste buds may not adjust for several weeks to a new taste, whether it's sweet or bitter or salty or whatever. So give time for the adaptation of that new behavioral habitat, and support. Oh, I saw you reaching for that strawberry. Would you like to find out more about it? Support all those steps to healthy eating that your children are making, rather than look for monumental changes.
Mm-hmm. So, and reduce screen time.
More.
Yeah, and active play.
So
and
important,
encourage
that
active
last
play.
one. Yeah.
And here's our final thought, Judy.
And we want to end with this, especially after Martin Luther King Day, this wonderful quote from John F. Kennedy: food is strength, and food is peace, and food is freedom.
Okay. And with that thought, we are going to have our drawing. Thanks so much. I know we've gone over. Sarah's saying she loves that notion of food security. Yeah, I do too. So I'll share that the blog post there. Okay, so here's how we're going to do it. I have my birth dates, and whoever's closest after my birth date, the first three will get a choice of their of the books that they want. So type in the chat, you don't have to put your year, of course, but what's your birth date? Your month and date and birth. Okay, Marina's 25. Oh, you got a birthday coming up. 12/29, 6/25, 12/09. Oh my God,
January
happy
17th.
birthday. Well, you get to pick,
Yay.
Chris, yeah, I'm gonna break my rule. You're gonna. Okay, Laura, yeah, I know you're in October, baby, huh? Diana's July. Okay. All right. So let's see, what do I got here? Oh, Zia, hey, that's cheating, Loud.
Well, I don't know.
Okay, so actually I said after, but I think the closest ones, Marina, my birthday, okay, so my birthday is March 21st. So the closest ones are, yeah, Genesis. And yeah, Genesis, Marina, and it's, since it's your birthday, Chris, we're going to give you a choice. Okay, so Genesis, Marina, and Chris, type in which book you want, and I'll make a record of it. Yeah, Maria, and I owe you another book, so why don't I wait until I get both books and send it to you? Forgive me, it's been on my to-do list, so it all worked out. You got another book. Chris wants Rice and Rocks. Good and Cheap for Genesis, and Marina wants Rice and Rock. Okay, I'll get those books for you. Thank you for staying with us. We really appreciate you coming to our webinars. Judy, I am so appreciative to have you here as well. Thank you, and we'll see you at our next webinar in February.
We love
All right?
having you. Thank you, everybody.
Okay, bye everyone.
Bye, all.
And wait, let me save the chat here. Save chats, save chat. Okay, bye everybody.
Well.
Bye, Judy.